When you talk about looking at the book and you talk about Leslie Flint's life, you get drawn back into where you have been yourself and the character you know. That's the beauty of the book. Because when you've been part of it, when you have seen it, you have been in his home and you see his love for the theater, you can see it where you sat, if you like. It was a little cinema and things like that. You really do feel that. And I like that by the book because it is a book where you learn not only about his spiritual side of life, but you also, all the other parts that he also likes. That's what I really like about it. Sort of, I like this, I don't like that, I like this, I don't like that. I mean, you just had to literally laugh, do you know what I mean? This kind of thing with it, I have to say, because that's what he was. And he often, maybe something that's never really spoken about, which I think I should do with you and this little thing here. And that is that when you sat with Leslie Flint and Mickey came through and you sat there, and then he will sit and Leslie Flint will go, and then suddenly you will hear Mickey says, "Stop snorting." And then Leslie Flint will say, "I'm not snorting." "Yes, you are." "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are." "No, I'm not." And they will go, and they will have these small, not arguments, but just, hang on a minute, And I thought that this was always so funny, these, as I call, quirky moment. And there was one thing, now I can reveal this one, which was quite funny. I came down one day, and in the back of his wall, where he had his seance in Paddington, he had pictures up. And there was one picture hanging on the wall of Mickey, the drawing everybody used. And then he turned around and he said to me, "Do you know what, Marion? So many people are sending me drawings of Mickey, what you have seen." And he said, "Most of them looks like inside of a onion. That's what he looks like to them. But to me, I just gone, you're all mad." So there was all funny stories like that he suddenly will come out with, but he thought that most of the pictures that people have sent to him look like the inside of an onion. It was quirky things like that. I thought that was quite funny. I have a relationship with Bram for years and years and years, Yeah. But, when you were together with him, he always says, and Bram is upstairs. He will always go something, and Bram, they would always come in. But you just didn't ask questions. But in his later years, he moved with Bram down to, I think Bram moved with him down to Brighton, in something called Hove. That's where he then lived. And his sittings in the end of it was very blank, if you like. There was not much happened. It was like his age had come in, maybe, he sort of has lost that ability in which we have, remember, sometimes we do, as we get older, our brain is not always that inclined or active or whatever. Just hope my one will be staying. But I don't know why that was, but I do know that he did smoke quite a lot and also liked his drink, because we went sometimes. Because we sometimes, I said, we don't have this today. We don't have the same things today, I have to say. But in London, we had something called the Psychic Dinner and Dance, where all the mediums met, all the healers met. And we had like a 5-course meal, if you like, and orchestras playing, and we had a top table and then tables all around and things like that. And often, of course, Leslie was there and I was there. And I always remember Tony Ortson. He come running up to me and he said to me, "Marion." I said, "Yes, we have put you on the table." I went, "What table?" Like this. And I always sort of maybe said, "Well, Doris Stoke and Doris Collins was 2 British mediums at the time in the sort of 80s and 90s, was extremely big. They could fill in like town hall and you name it, this kind of thing, with 1,000 people in one go or whatever." And I said, "Why have you put me on that table? you have to keep them apart and the peace. And I remember Leslie Flint laughing his head off, and he said, well, he said, I get an awful lot. He stood up and said, I get an awful lot of accusation. But this year, he said, at this dance, he said, I know I'm a fantastic medium. I know what I can do. And then he turned around and said, but it is not my fault. We have no peace without dinner. He seems to have forgotten it. And I did not dismaterialize them. See the sense of humor there was, you know, this kind of psychic dinner and dances, because it was so, I can only say, so informative. Do you know what I mean? We met each other. We had fun. We don't have that today. We have fights. We have a lot of egotism, a lot of jealousy. We have a lot of everything, which we just didn't have. Not in the same sort of level, but we had lots of fun. And that's where I say I met most of my medium friends going back. I mean, I go back 50 years with them in London, and of course learned a lot. And I have to say that through Leslie Flint, I did learn a lot, really a lot. Because when you have direct communication with somebody in spirit, and you hear the voices and you're sitting, gosh, will you learn. It's fantastic. I have never seen Leslie train. I have done TV program with Leslie Flint before, about his mediumship. Him and I was on a TV thing together. Train anybody. He had always people coming to his home in Paddington, which were almost like a cinema. If you can imagine a little private cinema with the chairs, a clap go up and down when you stood up and down like it was in a cinema. And he was also just a little bent, you know, around just like it was. And I learned by, I think it was another medium who also sat with him, who's now passed over. And he said the only reason for why, Marion, it was a cinema was because that Leslie Flint loved old films. He loved black and white films, and he showed it for his friends in the streets that he came down. So it was also used as a cinema room. Didn't know that. Yeah. You see, you learn behind constantly. Do you know what I mean? Thinking, so interesting of learning all things behind, who the people were that dealt with this, and specifically in my time, you know, you learned a lot. And I always remember one thing that has stuck in my mind so deeply that Leslie told me, and that was, you know something, Marion, he said today, he said, mediums are rolled off like if it was in a factory's conveyor belt. There is no training. You don't learn enough. You just come out fast. That's what he said. Absolutely. So, yeah, that's how, you know, and my sort of work with Leslie, you know, sitting with him, being part of and seeing some of the magnificent things that happened within his demonstration of independent mediumship. But he also said another things to me. He also said, and I think he said that to quite a lot of people, and that was, the day that I am here no more, I have been told by Spirit there will not be another. There hasn't been. That he actually said. And that's also something about, oh, that's really sad, you know, but it has not been another one. We have it sometimes, of course, in the physical circle they're set up. We certainly have had that in my physical circles. But I also believe it's not taken outside, like Leslie, just he didn't sit in the cabinet. You've got to remember he didn't sit in the cabinet. He sat on a chair. That's it, you know, and he was fully awake in conversations. He could go in there and he could have conversation with spirit. And there was sometimes more than one spirit that was talking. I also learned another valid things when I was there, and that was that not all spirit wants to come through. Because there was one man, I remember, he came there more than once, like me, called Peter. And I think Peter must have been in sort of his maybe 50s or late 50s, and his wife would have passed over. Her name was Sue. She was about 48 or something like that. And he came specific to see Leslie Flint because he wanted to see if she was all right. And in all that time I sat there, she never came through. And there was a time where Leslie turned around and said to Mickey, could you do me a favor, Mickey? Go and find Sue for us. Where is she? And then, sorry, you heard Mickey going, oh, God, like this. And then he nipped off. Yeah. And then we all but just sat and talked a little bit because there was nobody else there because Mickey steered it all the way. He says, well, I can't find her. I cannot find her. She's nowhere to be found. He goes like that. And then, you know, you heard Leslie just literally just sitting back and just saying, well, doesn't that teach us something? It's not all spirit that wants to get through. And I learned that too. And that's a valid, again, you know, something that I take with me on the platform when people are sitting and wanted to speak to, I don't know, your child, your father, your mother, and you never come through. And you have to sometimes, it is quite, I mean, I just find it very, very fascinating. You know, I have it also because, as I said, I go back at a time where there was extremely good mediums about, extremely good physical circles about, and things like that, which I feel we don't have. I mean, everybody today, I just feel, goes into trance and wants to sit in trance all the time. But I have also realized by listening to some of the trance mediumship that comes out, there's nothing new that comes through. It all things from the past that comes again and again, and something you could have read in an old book. You know, there's no new teaching, there's no new ways really. It's something I think that's never really talked about. How come there's so many males that come through in physical mediumship as in trance work? Where's the females? Where's Ellen Duncan? Where's all the good mediums we had? You never hear their voices coming through. It is seldom you ever hear a nice woman's voice that comes through. And females, he's the only one I know who had females through that spoke female voices. That was totally, absolutely female. Yep. But I haven't heard it since in trance mediumship. This is where I'm saying I don't hear female voices. I hear voices of old men, of old scholars and things like that, but never of a female. I find that quite fascinating. There you are. Put my point down.